So yesterday, a video was posted to Jeux Video Magazine, Baguette, a French outlet that does video game coverage and stuff. And they've previously had good reporting on Ubisoft adjacent things, which is pretty common. Like a lot of French channels have connections within Ubisoft because that's where they're based, you know? Might be a friend you met at the coffee shop at, French, the pastry shop or whatever French people do in their spare time. Or it could just be friends that you know that work at Ubisoft. Who knows? Somebody you heard on the train. I don't know. But they do tend to have pretty good reporting that is generally accurate as far as I've been able to find. So it's not confirmed that everything that was described in here is the truth, but it's possible. Don't drink it. You're not my dad. So what I wanted to talk about, I did a whole breakdown on this on the main channel, which you can check out if you're interested, where I go through the entire video transcript and we break it down piece by piece. But there's two individual things that I wanted to discuss and bring up that I thought were interesting and worth discussing. For one, there's a suggestion in this reporting that they have reworked the combat system as part of the Black Flag remake. So this article or this video breaks down a lot of rumors and leaks about the Black Flag remake. And one of the things that they said was that the combat has been reworked to be closer to the modern games than it is to the old ones. So if you don't recall somehow, the old Assassin's Creed games used what was called a paired animation combat system, which was basically that based on certain inputs, it was going to match up your actions to an NPC's actions, and then an animation would play out between the two NPC or two characters, and it would deal damage as a result of that animation playing out. Pretty straightforward. What effectively happened was it turned all of the combat into what people commonly refer to as a button mashing combat system, where it's X, X, X for attacking with the occasional Y tossed in to break, as you can see here, or B to block or parry. And that's about it. Really basic. Other people have called it like rock, paper, scissors combat. It was a staple of these games for a long time, but it was scrapped in 2017 with AC Origins in favor of a hitbox-based system, which became the standard around the era of like 2014-15, in part because of Soulsborne games that really popularized hitbox-based combat systems, where you can easily space your character against the enemy, where you can have loot for different weapons that have different stats that scale much more dynamically within that combat system. Whereas in this system, it was pretty straightforward that you could have stats for like overall damage. Other than that, like there's not a lot of stuff you can do in terms of stat adjustments other than like increasing inventory space. So the combat system within AC Black Flag, in my opinion, is antiquated. There's a reason they changed it back in 2017, and people forget because we kind of have recency bias. But back in 2015, when Syndicate came out, people were complaining about the combat system. AC Syndicate was criticized a lot because of its combat system being very, very heavy on the button mashing, which it kind of was. And looking back, a lot of people feel nostalgic for it, but I think it's important to also remember that it was heavily critiqued even at the time for many, many reasons. So what's been suggested in this report by Jeux Video Magazine is that they have made adjustments so it's closer to the modern combat system than it is to the older one. We don't know exactly what that means, if it means that it's going to play just like AC Valhalla, or if it's going to play like Shadows. Like we don't know, but they've said that it's not going to follow the same vein as the old school games. And personally, I'm not like, that to me is not a deal breaker. As I said in my tweet, as an old school fan of Black Flag myself, I can admit that the combat is very antiquated. Hearing that they might be overhauling it to more modern standards makes perfect sense to me. They changed it in 2017 for a reason, after all, because people constantly complained about it. And some people have followed up on this. Rhino said, modern standards don't automatically mean change it to what Origins is. There's no monolithic example of modern standards. The idea that the game needs to be cheap or a cheap Witcher knockoff to be modern is exactly why modern gaming is regressing. And I personally think that this is a little reductive. I think it's more trend chasing as opposed to just Witcher knockoffs, but I get what he's saying. And I said maybe a better way of saying this would have been modern expectations. As old as it makes me feel, a lot of the people who will end up playing this likely never touched the original version, so all of the clunkiness won't be excused by nostalgia. It will just feel clunky, which I think it's something that's really easy for us to ignore. Part of the idea and what Ubisoft is trying to do pretty clearly is that they want to funnel people into Skull and Bones by getting them into pirate games again. And they also want to reintroduce this game to a new generation of gamers who never played it. And also to people who did play it, but make it fit more with what they expect it to be. And the combat system was always a weak point of the old school Assassin's Creed games, specifically the melee combat system. And so they are allegedly making adjustments to it to make it more in line with expectations. But that one is one I can certainly understand some people agreeing with or disagreeing with. Maybe you love the paired animation system. Maybe you hate it. I don't know, but that's certainly a matter for personal preference, you know, whatever you like. Still encourage everybody to keep an open mind because for one, we don't know if this is actually true. And two, we don't know to what degree this is true, if it is, because as Jeux Video magazine has clarified, they don't know exactly what the combat looks like. They just know that it's not going to be the same as the core Black Flag game. So there's that. In addition, one of the other very interesting and I think much more substantial changes that is being alleged here is that allegedly they're removing the modern day segments from Black Flag. Now this one I expected to be like where most of the discourse is. It seems it's mostly centered around the combat discussion. But if you don't remember, Black Flag basically, like, it starts out all piratey. I'm all down for pirate stuff, love it. And then at one point it transitions and you go and they bring you out into the modern day segments. In the base game, they had a bunch of these little cutaways where you would go and like walk around the office. And it was basically, I mean, the Abstergo thing was always kind of funny and weird because it was basically Ubisoft and they were kind of poking fun at themselves. So you have these missions where you have a communicator, basically an iPad that you're walking around with. And then there's some missions and some stuff that happens in the real world outside of the Animus. And then you go back to the Animus. And as you can see, you can go up to different floors. And in this case, you're going up to speak to CCO. And it's going to take you up. And then you're going to talk to the guy. And there's fun little like Easter eggs and knickknacks in here. But it, in my opinion, massacres the pacing of the game. Like just when you're feeling like a pirate, they pull you out and make you walk through a corporate office building. I understand why they did it narratively, but as far as like gameplay pacing, it really, really kills the pacing. At the time, there were some interesting narrative things that were revealed, some interesting lore building and stuff like that. But it was pretty clear that Ubisoft didn't really know what to do with the modern day sequences in this era, and they were still experimenting with them because this is right after the whole Desmond storyline that of course ended with AC3. And so they were still trying to figure out, are we doing this still? Are we going to just do a new chapter of the modern day, even though it's like not completely connected together with what we were doing before? And so they did this like half foot in the door, foot out the door thing. And it just didn't really work, in my opinion. I always kind of sighed whenever it would take me to a modern day sequence, not just in this game, but in other games. Like when I play the example I used in the big channel video, when I play AC Origins, I'm playing that because I want to be Bayek climbing and exploring ancient Egypt. I don't care if Layla is complaining about the temperature or humidity level in the cave that she's in while you're in the Animus. Like it's not why I'm playing these games. But there are different tastes for different players. Some players love the modern day stuff. Some players eat this up and it's like the highlight of the games for them. I understand that. I'm just expressing my opinion because that's all I can do. But like I kind of roll my eyes whenever I see this stuff. So what's being alleged is that they are cutting this stuff. So all this stuff you're seeing, they are alleging that this has been cut and it's being replaced by roughly 4 hours of additional piratey goodness. How they're doing that is they are adjusting how the game works on a pretty foundational level. So how the base game works, the original game works, I guess, is that you have the map. As you can see, this is the Caribbean Sea map, and they've got all the points of interest, animus fragments, and stuff like that. But ultimately how it works is that this is the whole map that we have. And when you arrive at certain areas like Kingston, you sail in here, and then it basically forces you to load through a load screen to dock at Kingston. You get off the boat, you can explore the city, and then you have to go through a load screen to get back on the boat to go back out into the ocean. What's being described in these leaks is that that's no longer the case. This will all be seamless. So you can just sail right up to Kingston, hop off your boat, and explore the city, and then hop right back on the boat. That's what's being described, which is a significant improvement. I didn't think they would go that far. Apparently that's what's happening. The other thing that's happening is that they are trying to make the islands more interactive, and they don't want it to feel as antiquated. Meaning, and this is what's like kind of iffy, we don't know exactly to what degree what I'm about to describe is true, but this is what's being suggested. They describe through the French translation that these smaller islands will all be accessible. So you'll be able to go explore them. There will be new activities on there, whether they're just collectathons or whatever. You'll be able to hop off your ship, go and explore it. And it's possible to interpret what they're saying also as meaning that all of these islands will be fully navigable, and that you'll be able to actually go and explore the entire island. And they might have bosses sprinkled around there. There might be treasure chests sprinkled in the hills of the mountains, climb a tower. Exactly. We just don't know. But these little spots might no longer be just little bitty outcrops, and then none of this is explorable. This whole island may be explorable with new stuff sprinkled in, but it's a matter of interpretation, because basically what they describe in the video is that smaller islands are being completely reworked, and areas that the player couldn't access before will now be accessible with new activities and things for them to explore and see for themselves. That could just mean these smaller islands. It could also mean the big islands too. We don't know. But it seems like they are trying to really take this up a notch so that you don't feel, and this is the key, like they don't want you to feel like you're playing a game from 2013. It seems like their goal, the whole goal, is for it to feel like it is a modern game, and it's sort of a reintroduction of that older game to this new generation, which I can understand why they'd want to do that. I mean, I totally get it, because the game is old and there's a lot of people out there who have never touched it. And if they touched it, they'd be surprised at how 2013 it was. Like, you want to go and explore Havana, you got to go through a load screen to get there. Not anymore. They don't want that to be the case. And it might be the case that not being able to hop off your ship and explore the sides of these islands might just be a little jarring. Personally, for me, I don't think they need to fill these with like crazy parkour challenges and stuff. I think you can largely do just procedural jungle and stuff in here. It's fine. You're in the Caribbean. It doesn't need to be like super, super dense. It's okay for like, no, there's nothing to find in there. It's just a dense forest. That's okay. But then you know what you do? You know what you do? You go in there and you sprinkle in just one or maybe two little Easter eggs. Maybe it's about AC Hexe. Maybe it's a reference to an older or different game. It could be any number of things, but just a little bitty Easter egg of something else. And a great example of a game that did this well was Just Cause 2, okay? Look at this, Rooster Teeth, old school Rooster Teeth. There was an island in the northwest corner of the map where you could go, and it was just dense jungle, as you can see here, just dense jungle. Nothing to be found out here that actually had like gameplay consequence, except you could find a general that ran around this area. He wouldn't attack you. He was invincible, but he emitted a bunch of smoke. And it was a reference to the show Lost with the smoke monster. Isn't that kind of fun? And then there was this. Elsewhere on the island, you go, you travel, you can find a plane wreck, which again is a reference to the show. And I mean, you might not have seen the show Lost, but at the time that this came out, like late 2000s, Lost was peak, dude. Lost was baller. It was baller. It was all over the place. And so, as you can see here, he climbs up to the top of the plane, and you find the search written out with an arrow pointing in. And if you go, you can actually find the hatch from the show. Just a few small, tiny Easter eggs sprinkled within a dense jungle. But dude, it's been over a decade. It's been like 15 years since this game came out. And I'm still talking about this stupid little Easter egg because it was so core to my childhood. Finding that thing was so freaking cool. It was so cool. And I think that can go a long way. Like, let people get lost. Let them find secrets. Let them discover cool stuff like that. You don't need to have the map this dense through the whole forest. It's okay. We'll find things to do. You can sprinkle it this densely in the cities. Okay, that makes sense. But when you're out exploring here, it's fine if there's jungle that's just jungle. That's totally fine. Sprinkle in a fun little, a couple fun Easter eggs that keep people motivated and get them searching. Like here, developer signature. Log in to track found locations. Oh, is it just literally that? It's the signature on the actual map itself. That's fun. Anyway, that type of thing I think can go a long way. But the point of all of this is that we don't know exact details, and we are largely working from like insinuation and the leaks and things like that. So from what I've heard, I'm intrigued. It sounds way more transformational than I thought it would be, which is nice because I thought it was going to be pretty low effort. And it seems like they're actually doing a lot of work. Some of the work they're doing may end up being like stuff they shouldn't have done. But a lot of the work they're doing sounds interesting, like reworking the entire map, making it so that you don't have load screens broken up between points of interest. That's genuinely pretty cool. So I'm interested in that.